Hello everybody! Today we're going to talk about comparing and ordering fractions. And so our learning goal for today is I can compare and order fractions and rational numbers. And we're just going to talk about the first part of that for today. Our vocabulary term that we need to talk about today is least common denominator, or LCD. And least common denominator is when you have two or more fractions, it's the least common multiple of their denominator. So we already know what a least common multiple is. It's the smallest multiple that two numbers share. And so the least common denominator is just basically that, looking at the two denominators. And remember that a multiple is a number that you get when you multiply a number by another number. So it's not a factor. Not the same thing as a factor. When we compare fractions, it is a good idea to change those fractions so that they have their least common denominator. So what's the smallest denominator that I can change these two fractions to so that they have the same denominator? And then I will be able to easily compare them together. So if I look at 3/4 and 7/10, and I want to compare those two and figure out which one's bigger and which one's smaller, I want to find the smallest number that both 4 and 10 will divide into evenly. And so I could start listing multiples of 4 and 10. So multiples of 4 would be 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12, 4 times 4 is 16, 4 times 5 is 20. Now I know that I can stop there because I know that 10 times 2 is 20. So the least common multiple of 4 and 10 would be 20. So I'm now going to write two equivalent fractions, two fractions that are equivalent to 3/4 and 7/10, so that they both have 20 in the denominator. And then I'll be able to compare those because they'll be the same size pieces, and I can just see, okay, how many pieces do I have? So I need to ask myself, remember I'm going to multiply my numerator and my denominator by the same number to get an equivalent fraction. And so I need to ask myself, well, what am I multiplying 4 by to get 20? I'm multiplying 4 by 5. So I also need to multiply 3 by 5 to get an equivalent fraction. So 15/20 is equivalent to 3/4. And then I'm going to do the same thing with 7/10. What am I multiplying 10 by to get 20? Well, I'm multiplying that by 2. And I remember I have to multiply my numerator by the same number to get an equivalent fraction. So I'm going to do 7 times 2, and that will be 14. So these are now two fractions that are equivalent to the ones I started with, but now they both have 20 in the denominator, so they're easy to compare. And I can see that 15/20 is greater than 14/20. Not very much greater, but a little bit greater because I have one more piece. So I can write a comparison using the greater than symbol showing that. And I could also go back to my original fraction here, and I could say that 3/4, which was my 15/20, is greater than 7/10, which was my 14/20. So I can now compare my original fractions because I changed them so that they had a common denominator. So here's another example. A construction company uses plywood sheets in the following thicknesses: 3/8 inch for roofing, 1/2 inch for flooring, 1/4 inch for countertop surfaces, and 1/8 inch for filling gaps. Put the fractions in order from least to greatest. So I'm going to change all of these fractions so that they have a common denominator, and I'd like to use the least common denominator. And so I can see I have 3/8, I have 1/2, I have 1/4, and I have 1/8. And I can see that all 4 of those denominators divide evenly into 8. And that has to be the least common denominator because 2 of them have a denominator of 8, and the smallest multiple of 8 is 8. 8 times 1 is 8. So that would be my least common denominator. So the ones that already have 8 as their denominator, I don't need to change at all. What I am going to do is change 1/2 and 1/4 so that they have a denominator of 8 as well. So I am now going to multiply by something here so that I have 8 in my denominator for 1/2. So I need to say, well, 2 times what equals 8? 2 times 4 equals 8. So I will also multiply my numerator by 4. 1 times 4 is 4. So 4/8 is the same as 1/2. And then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to multiply by something so that I get 8 in my denominator. 4 times 2 is 8. So I'm also going to multiply my numerator by 2, and 1 times 2 is 2. So I now have 4 fractions here that all have 8s in the denominators. And I can now go ahead and put these in order. I can see that 1/8 is the smallest, and then 2/8 would be the next smallest, and that was originally 1/4. So I'm going to write that as 1/4 when I put these in order. 3/8 would be the next fraction, and then 4/8 or 1/2 would be the final fraction. So I put those in order from least to greatest using the least common denominator so that I could compare them. So here are your free response and multiple choice questions. Go ahead and pause the video and answer these 2 questions now.